Doesn't finish till 8. Doesn't finish till 8.
Hello and good evening and welcome to Black History Month at Writing on the Wall and our penultimate event. It's actually our last live event, but I say penultimate because the last word tomorrow is going to our young audiences when we have story time with Claire Hooken for the little ones. But it's been, as we draw to the end almost of Black History Month, I have to say, it's been an incredible time. It's been so exciting. We've picked up on the debates of the Black Lives Matter protests. We've looked at issues of police harassment, civil liberties, how to take the bias out of our curriculum and how to retell our histories more accurately. And perhaps most crucially, we've considered what next for the anti-racist struggle. We've made some really important international connections. From the US, we've had stars of Britpop discussing race and disability. We've had the legend and sports activist that is Dr. Harry Edwards, who zoomed in. And we've heard of the French struggle from Daniela Bono, a member of the French Parliament. And we've also, as well as our international guests, we've shone a spotlight on local activism, showcasing the work of heritage projects that are taking place in Liverpool and of new writers from our Time to Breathe project. So far, over 10,000 people have viewed our Black History Month events, and it's not over yet. This evening, I'm delighted to say we are launching this incredible book of 15 essays, which has grown out of a Windrush heritage project, and it is presenting new and original work. And tonight you're going to hear from some of those writers who are featured in that book. We're also joined by a very special guest who I'll be introducing you to shortly. And at the end of the event, we'll have a live DJ set from Lord Borthwick, aka Stu Borthwick, and Chair of Writing on the Wall. Now, I'd like to hand over to Emmy Onyora, who was the creative lead on the project and has worked very closely with the writers in the production of their essays. Hi, Emmy.
Hi, Madeline. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you.
Good. Well, just to kind of introduce this evening's event, and hopefully those people out there will really enjoy it and appreciate some of the work that's been done over the last few months, actually. But I just want to give some background and context to how this book emerged. Actually, the book is the culmination of a project that Writing on the Wall launched around the development of and the impact of music on the Windrush, or rather the impact of the Windrush generation on British popular music. And actually, when I say popular music, what's really interesting about what's emerged in response to the book is that you would expect some of the kind of usual styles, such as reggae and hip hop, to be incorporated into the book itself, into the writings of the participants. But also we've had things like classical music, the impact of which is talked about, the impact of the Windrush generation on classical music in this country. And so what's emerged from the course itself is a brilliant collection and a wide-ranging collection of essays that have been written that feature all kinds and a wide, diverse range of music. Just to give a few thanks to people and talk about how the a little bit more about how the course emerged. Essentially, it was done over the course of a few weeks, where the participants of the course were introduced to a number of musical forms, were introduced to the context, to the histories, and different genres and styles of music, and so people like Ray Quarles, who many people might know as a local activist who talked about Liverpool's clubland, to our own Stuart Borthwick, who looked at the history of reggae, to Phil Hartnell, who looked at the influence of dance music. We had a wide range of contributors in that sense who all gave their input and their perspectives on various forms of music. So big thanks to Ray Quarles, James McCarthy, Stuart, Dave Randall, Kev McManus, and Phil, who all contributed to our knowledge, if you like, of these musical forms. It reminded me actually that music is one of the key indicators of success of the Windrush generation, and on British and the impact of the Windrush generation on British music and wider culture more broadly just cannot be underestimated. Britain's probably recognised as having probably the highest levels of creativity and innovation, or the British music scenes having the highest levels of creativity and innovation in the world. That wouldn't have been possible, or that title wouldn't have been possible without the impact that the Windrush generation had in shaping the musical landscape of this country. We'll get a flavour of that tonight. The book that Madeline showed at the beginning there are 12 essays, there are 12 contributors to the book. It's a great utilisation of the essay as a form of writing and as a style of writing. It's because what it demonstrates is more than just what could have been a simple review of a particular artist or musical style. What we have quite often is people's personal takes, people's personal perspectives, and also the way in which musical styles and genres were placed within their kind of historical and social and political context. So the utilization of the essay as a form has worked really well in this particular instance. And of the 12 contributors, we're going to hear from 7 of them this evening. It reminds me as well that actually the 12 contributors have only scratched the surface, really, of the rich history and diversity that exists in as far as when we think of Black British music. There are genres that are missing, and no doubt that are missing, but and it demonstrates that actually all we've done is just merely scratch the surface in terms of the range of musical styles that are there. But I think also, more importantly, that having a collection like this of different styles and different music adds to what is written. There's a limited amount that's written about these particular subjects, and it adds actually significantly to what has been written in the past. So I salute all the participants who took part in this. Many of the, just a word on the people who were on the contributors tonight, although we gave them kind of a flavour of different styles and different genres and different artists, what what was significant about what the contributors did was they took those gems of ideas and made them their own, and went away and run away and researched things that were of interest to them, musical styles that they've got an affinity with, but also musical styles and ideas that they had no knowledge of, but had an interest in, and were able to go away and come up with some fantastic work. So without further ado, we will go on, and I'm sure people want to hear more about these particular essays and hear more from the contributors.
Thanks, Em. As Emmy said, the publication grew out of a project looking at Windrush music, and this project was launched in the wake of the Windrush scandal, which kind of hit in 2017. And I think it's important to say that this scandal is still going on, despite numerous government apologies. It's, you know, there is no real redress. It was in the news only this week that only 168 people have received compensation 2.5 years after the government first apologised for mistakenly misclassifying thousands of British residents as illegal immigrants. And, you know, as well as music being a key signifier of the success of the Windrush Generation, I think also we can look to the NHS for further evidence of that. And there's never been a time that the NHS has been more important. So I think it's important that we document the contribution when we're talking about music, that we connect it to the political situation that is going on, because the hostile environment is still very much with us. Talking about documenting and politics, I'm absolutely delighted to be introducing our next guest, our special speaker, our special guest, who's going to talk about the importance of documenting Black music and its impact, and he's going to bring in a national perspective. And I am, of course, talking about Michael Riley. Many of you will know that Michael is a founder member of the award-winning, Grammy Award-winning roots reggae band Steel Pulse. He also formed the Reggae Philharmonic Orchestra, Britain's first Black pop orchestra. He's currently a senior lecturer at the University of Westminster, where he's established the Black Music Research Unit. He led On Bass Culture, a research project that explored the impact of Jamaican music on British culture. And this led to the Bass Culture exhibition, the largest photographic exhibition of Jamaican music. He's also senior trustee for the Black Music Education Trust, and that's born out of the need to document, like we are doing here tonight, document the history of Black music. Could you give a big virtual welcome, please, to Michael Riley?
Hello, and thank you. I'm not sure what the big virtual welcome looks like, but I'll accept it's happening out there. Firstly, I think thumbs up. Okay, thanks, Brian. Firstly, I'd just like to thank Madeline for the invite and for the WoW Festival for the invite, and just to commend the work taking place. I think too often, regionally, we get overlooked, and I say that because I'm from Birmingham. And I can remember being in Birmingham and wanting London, who has this national overview, to just recognize all the work taking place locally. And the importance of the work taking place regionally should not be underestimated. Without the regions, there is no UK. It's that simple. And in terms of the contribution made by local communities and communities of color, people of color, the port cities are incredibly rich in terms of that historical, cultural contribution that often gets overlooked. The work I'm doing in London is trying to pull together that regional contribution, be it music, be it other aspects of art, be it fashion, dance, language, all important cultural contributions that have come out of Britain's relationship with Africa and the African Caribbean community. I think importance of writing this stuff down, again, should not be underestimated. When I was growing up, there was a saying, if you want to hide something from the Black community, put it in a book. And I laughed about it. And then I realized just how serious that was. And it was alluding to the fact that we don't read. So the importance here of cataloging, researching, and then reproducing that as text should not be underestimated. One of the outcomes of the whole Black Lives Matter campaign is a recognition that of the absence of content that should be in schools, in the curriculum, and the absence of content that we should be writing and or recording and writing, and insisting that that content ends up within academia. And if we're looking for a legacy of, you know, existing, a legacy of cultural contributions that have been made, then we should look to some extent no further than the curriculum and how we can contribute to that. So this particular book is really important. I should say, from a musical perspective, and the location of Liverpool, again, people generationally will tune into the artist that reflects their moment in time. And so when we look back at even bands like, I don't know, The Real Thing, for example, there's a history there that most people don't know about in relation to the Beatles, in relation to the Cavern, in relation to harmonies. They were perhaps the first male vocal harmony group, and the impact this had on perhaps the most famous group still, which is the Beatles. Their manager ended up being the person that took the Beatles on tour in Germany. But because we don't often connect the dots over time, this history gets lost. So any efforts that pulls this history together to give us a national overview of what's happening is really important. So this, you know, I can't underestimate the work that's been done here. But also, I should mention that some of the work I'm now doing is to connect this type of work that's happening in the UK to America. And I was approached by the head of the Smithsonian Institute in Washington to embark on a project that would look at the impact of African American music on British culture. And I turned it down. And he said, how can you turn this down? And I said, well, actually, I'd like to do a project that looks at the impact of Black British music on America. And they laughed. And they then said, is that a thing? And what came out of that brief moment was a recognition that America, in its broadest context, doesn't even acknowledge a Black presence in the UK, let alone the cultural contribution. So that emphasizes the need to embark on such endeavors to get this history written down, and alongside writing it down, any photographic evidence, any recorded evidence in terms of audio, any videos. It's increasingly important that we capture that, so we have that to represent the community as we move forward in time. And we're now in a race, by the way, to capture the experiences of the elders within the community. So, you know, the work that's been done here, I think, is fantastic. And any links to the wider community, the wider Black diaspora in the UK, I still support, but also reconnecting. We all need to be connected because it's our story. So the work that I'm doing is your story, it's my story, it's our story. And however, you know, I can be involved in sharing this, this work, I'm fully behind. Lastly, I would say the other component here is the dissemination of content. So having written the book, how does it get disseminated? How does it get shared? How do we discover the content of that book? And the work I'm now doing in London at the Black Music Research Unit is connecting universities across the UK and then universities internationally so that they understand the work that we are all actively engaged in. So thank you. I look forward to hearing the readings.
Thank you, Michael. I'm so glad that you started off talking about the regions. Obviously, we feel that's an important point to make, particularly within writing, where the publishing industry is so London-centric. So thanks for flagging that up. And dissemination is obviously another thing that we think a lot about. So we'll post you a copy of this book, and maybe you can help to get it out there far and wide. But thank you for agreeing to come on tonight. It's been fantastic to have you here. And yeah, you take care now. I'm going to hand over to my co-director, Emmy Onyora, who's going to introduce those people who were featured in the book, some of those people featured in the book, which is, by the way, available from News from Nowhere and also directly from WoW. Over to you, Emmy, to introduce the writers.
Okay, it's a really good introduction from Michael, because I hope, hopefully, and certainly when he gets an opportunity to look at the book, you'll see that it does have a very strong regional profile, not just as far as Merseyside concerned, which you'd expect, but also in terms of Bristol, his home city of Birmingham, amongst other places as well. So the first person I want to introduce you to is Karen Fletcher. Karen has written on the importance of carnival to the identity of the Windrush generation. What she's done is she's looked at the kind of history of carnivals more generally, but also specifically the Notting Hill Carnival, and tried to place, or has placed, I should say, the Notting Hill Carnival within its kind of historical and social context. And talks about its growth, its small beginnings to its growth, and how carnivals contributed to the British music scene. So introducing Karen Fletcher.
Hiya, thanks, Emmy. Just going to read a little bit out of my chapter. The route to Notting Hill Carnival began in January 1959 as a result of the racial tensions at that time. In 1958, vicious race riots had erupted across London with violent attacks on newly arrived Windrush migrants throughout the summer, the culmination of a decade of escalating racial tension. The Notting Hill race riots were fueled by fascist organisations, Oswald Mosley's Union League and the White Defence League, promoting anti-Black immigrant rhetoric. Seeing some stuff like that today as well. Which was also stirred up by the media. Gangs of white men armed with bike chains and knives frequently roam the streets, violently attacking Black men and vandalising their homes and their community centres. And by the end of August 1958, these attacks were daily. Black men responded by defending themselves and making defensive strikes against known fascist headquarters. Anti-Black violence had also spread to other areas such as Nottingham, and Kelso Cochrane, a young Black carpenter from Antigua, was fatally stabbed the following year in a racist attack. And the riots were a pivotal movement in the Black British political activism, as they led to the formation of Black community organisations and the forging of a distinct Black political identity. So in January 1959, a community Mardi Gras event took place in St Pancras Town Hall, and it was the brainchild of Trinidadian Claudia Jones, who had hoped to transplant the Trinidadian tradition of carnival to Britain to forge unity between Britain's West Indian community and reach out to white Britain. She saw carnival as a unifying force of hope and reconciliation. Its joyful spirit captured by the slogan that decorated the hall, and that was, "A people's art is the genesis of their freedom." Now, by 1970, there were just 2 steel bands in Carnival, because I'll talk a little bit about the origins of the kind of music from that. But just to jump forward then, the Carnival began to attract thousands of people from all over London and further afield. And during the 1970s, coaches used to travel up from Liverpool 8 youth clubs and community centres, taking the revellers to the Carnival in Notting Hill. And by 1975-76, it was marked with confrontation between black youths and the police. And it was the growing tension at that time throughout Britain of the failure to protect black people from racist attacks, combined with what many regarded as excessive police harassment and brutality. And unemployment was rising, particularly amongst black youth, who were unjustly targeted with stop and search laws. And heavy police presence at the Carnival caused tension and resentment from black youths who saw this as an intrusion into their only substantive entertainment event black people would call their own. Now, obviously, we are seeing a rise of Black Lives Matters, and black attacks, certainly haven't gone away, and we still see that that's happening today. But that's not in my chapter. Just to finish, the Windrush Generation has greatly contributed and enhanced British culture by bringing the diversity of music to the Caribbean, and that was celebrated in Notting Hill Carnival. Thanks, Emmy.
Thank you very much, Karen. Really good. Karen's just given a flavour, if you like, of an essay which covers a lot of ground and covers the history of carnivals more broadly, and also the development of the Notting Hill Carnival. So I do urge people who are only thinking about obtaining the book and want to find out more about this particular feature of Black British history and music to purchase the book and read more about about this particular feature of British culture and British life. I'm now going to introduce to you Brian Wharton. Brian's essay is about David McCalmont, who is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated vocalists this country's ever produced. Brian's essay raises lots of issues about the black gay experience, and also points to David McCalmont's inability to be pigeonholed as perhaps one of the reasons as to why he's not more widely recognised and why he's not more widely idolised. He should be, in my opinion, a kind of British national treasure. But here we go anyway. Brian Wharton is going to read his essay on David McCalmont. Brian.
Okay, thanks, Emmy. My essay it looks at an individual rather than rather than a particular movement or collective, and I've called the essay "From a Diva to a Soul Gentleman." In 1995, David McCalmont made his debut appearance on Top of the Pops and immediately struck my senses with the catchy, soaring summer sounds of Yes that he recorded with ex-Sway guitarist Bernard Butler. Spin forward to 2020, and with an array of outstanding achievements under his belt, commercial success has largely ignored McCalmont. My essay attempts to celebrate the 35-year career of McCalmont, who possesses a 3-octave voice, by looking at his impressive recording material and back catalogue to ask why haven't they reached a mass audience while barely gracing the charts. I want to know why. Today he remains virtually unknown except to his hardcore fans who get the benefit of seeing him live in his London concerts where he is adored for his outstanding talent. Has commercial success eluded him because he only attracts a limited audience, or is his musical range so diverse that his fan base is quite select? McCalmont, son of a Nigerian law student and a Guyanan nurse, was born in Croydon, Surrey in 1967, the year that homosexuality in Britain was partially decriminalised for men over the age of 21 years. McCalmont returned to his mother's homeland in 1978, leaving behind an unstable Britain that was suffering from within a climate of political mayhem, while still experiencing the backbite from punk. In Georgetown, the capital of Guyana, where he lived, local radio played superstars like Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, and Prince, who came to be huge influences on the young McCalmont. Like many black singers before him, McCalmont discovered his voice in church, though at first he sang so quietly so not to draw attention to himself. However, his teacher was curious about this beautiful sound and encouraged him to develop his talent. Although McCalmont knew his voice was unusual and made him stand out, he was unprepared for the homophobia that came with the whispers of Batty Man, the derogatory term for homosexuals, which was uttered in a country where gay men could face life imprisonment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Once again, Brian's only scratched the surface of David McCalmont's work, or his life and work, I should say. And there's more in that essay about his collaborations, about his performances, about his styles, and about his talent. So. A really excellent essay about a much underrated British, Black British icon. The next person up is Claire Brumby. Claire's essay looks at Massive Attack and demonstrates how their commitment to political activism extends the tradition of utilizing music to promote social and political issues. It also demonstrates the influence of sound systems on British music and how the upbringing, they were born and bred in Bristol, and how their upbringing in the city of Bristol shaped their music and shaped their activism. Claire Brumby.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I'm live. I can't really see, but there you go. Anyway, there you go. So yeah, this is Massive Attack. So this is an extract from my essay. So in the wider context of protest music, Massive Attack clearly follow a long line in a tradition of anti-racist and anti-colonial musicians raising awareness about the struggles of the oppressed and unheard, particularly through the cultural pressure exercised through the BDS movement and, on a local level, through their refusal to play at the Bristol concert venue formerly known as Colston Hall for many years, which until recently bore the name of 17th century slave trader Edward Colston. Obvious comparisons are with the collective of musicians coming together for Rock Against Racism and Artists United Against Apartheid in the 1970s and 1980s respectively. Conscientious collectives who demonstrated how our cause becomes more tangible, engaging and successful when musicians gather forces in its support. Both also captured the imagination of the Massive Attack members as young men, with Del Naja attempting raw gigs as a young punk, and the Wild Bunch actually performing at an anti-apartheid gig in Bristol circa 1986. No surprise that they found themselves supporting causes denouncing similar human rights offences years later, driving their strong message of solidarity home through the projection of imagery, statistics and data relating to global conflicts on huge screens during the pioneering live performances, rather than penning populist protest songs. Similarly, with the climate change issue, Del Narja and Marshall are using their popularity to add weight to this increasingly political cause, giving it a voice and exercising their influence to educate and encourage changes in behaviour amongst the mass population through their own innovative approaches towards sustainability. The band's hometown of Bristol has historically been a place of independent struggle, tolerance and innovation. A significant port for the triangular trade, it was the first city outside of London to set up a committee for the abolition of slavery in 1788, and the first with a petition to end it. Issues of class and cultural inequality have persisted, and there have been riots here in every century since the late 1700s, responding to taxes, parliamentary representation of the city, unnecessary police force, racial tensions, and even the building of a Tesco. Throughout all of this, the Bristolian intolerance for intolerance has prevailed, even shaping key pieces of government legislation with the 1963 Bristol bus boycott, which led to the creation of the Race Relations Act, first implemented in December 1965. This spirit of protest was more latterly echoed in the city's Black Lives Matter demonstrations in June 2020, where protesters pulled down the statue of the aforementioned Colston, and following this, forced the aforementioned music venue to change its name. This anti-establishment mindset would be difficult to avoid for three young men growing up in a city during the 1970s and 1980s, times of extreme economic, political and social inequality in both Bristol and the UK as a whole. Add into the mix the emergence of countercultures such as punk and hip hop in response to these conditions. No wonder Bristol became such a fertile breeding ground for these very opinionated musicians. Both scenes provided a generation of young, culturally diverse Bristolians the opportunity to come together and escape the tribalism and racism that defined the time. But it was the Caribbean music scene, and in particular reggae sound system culture, itself emerging from the anti-colonial struggles arising from the Atlantic slave trade, that bound these influences together and shaped Massive Attack's music and approach to political activism. Characterised by its traditional anti-establishment roots, its focus on upholding a strong message of unity through the concept of the collective and the innovative and progressive spirit of the sound clash, where crews battle to stay one pioneering step ahead of everyone else. It's in this scene that the Wild Bunch, including Bowles, Marshall and Del Narja, came together, using the power of music to unite people from different backgrounds together as an antidote to the fragmentation of the time, through a radical approach so clearly reflected throughout Massive Attack's work. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Claire, for that. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Massive Attack, and myself and Claire spoke at length about her essay, so I kind of know it inside out a little bit. But there's so much more in. But she's covered just such a broad range of their work and their influence. So it's a really good piece of work. So thanks very much, Claire. I'm now going to introduce Irene Stewart. Irene's work focuses on Liverpool's club scene in the 60s and the 70s. It's actually quite a personal piece by Irene, and it's really about her own kind of journey into discovering Liverpool's music scene when she. She's a member of this, she's a resident of the city. In the essay, she openly wonders why she was listening to all kinds of black music, but wasn't aware she could have heard it just 2 or 3 miles away from her home. And it gives a little insight as well into the racial segregation and exclusion that occurred within the city. So Irene Stewart, let's hear your essay.
Okay, thank you, Emmy. As you said, I feel as if I've been on a very personal journey doing this project. and I've learned so much that I knew nothing about. My piece is called Parallel Lives, and I'm reading from halfway through the piece. Most people of my generation grew up with Merseybeat, but as I entered my mid-teens, I favoured soul and Tamla Motown. As a mod, I listened to Otis Redding, Marvin Gaye, Smokey Robinson, The Temptations, to name but a few, all blasting out in our kitchen from my Dansette record player. It became a standard family joke that I preferred black music to white. I also began to listen to the music of a number of reggae artists, such as Millie Small and Desmond Dekker, unaware that the genre was being played and performed live a few miles away. I've since learned that from the 1940s onwards, around 40 nightclubs, social clubs, shebeens were established in the city. They served as community and social spaces, as well as after-hours drinking places, and played a huge role in the city's entertainment scene and cultural history, giving those living in the area a feeling of their own identity. Roy Stevens, who opened the extremely popular Palm Grove in Smithdown Lane, said at the time, "We can't get in clubs in town because of the colour of our skin, so we might as well do it here." Recently commenting about these clubs, Ray Corliss said that Liverpool city centre was basically a no-go area. There was just so much racism, so people set up their own clubs. This explains why there were no black faces at the youth clubs I attended, nor at the city nightclubs I later frequented. Although the 60s was an era of live music, with discotheques only becoming the norm towards the end of the decade, I didn't see any live performances of black artists other than touring Americans. I recently contacted brothers George and Jim Blott, Liverpool club owners and managers of local artists in the 60s and 70s, to question them on this. They said that it wasn't a deliberate act on their part to refrain from booking local black performers, but they contend that there were very few black artists in Liverpool at the time. They mentioned the Chants, a well-known local group on the verge of nationwide recognition, and a small number of other groups, including the Undertakers, the In Crowd, and Derry Wilkie and the Pressmen, who all had black musicians in the lineup. The Blott brothers said that they booked these musicians depending on their availability. However, it appears inconceivable that a city with such a rich musical history should have had so few black performers. The large number of black clubs operating in Liverpool at the time all have their own distinctive sound and were frequented by famous characters and musicians. One such character was Harold Phillips, known as Lord Woodbine. He is credited with being the Beatles' first manager who drove them to Hamburg to their first German gig. This fact, having largely been airbrushed out of history, was confirmed by Lord Woodbine's son and daughter at one of our project lectures. This, plus the little-known fact that Brian Epstein refused to allow the Beatles to perform alongside the Chants until Paul and John stepped in, leads me to conclude that the music scene was another mechanism determined to maintain the black and white apartheid. Music of the 60s and 70s appears to have been an outlet for black expression. Originally optimistic, the lyrical content of Jamaican reggae began to change as it reflected the prevailing social changes, including that of independence from Great Britain in 1962. If we consider Bob Marley's Get Up, Stand Up, this coincidentally, or perhaps intentionally, also reflected the mood in Britain at the time. Another reason as to why I was kept away from what was deemed by the establishment to be unhealthy. My research has left me in no doubt that I, as a white young person, was deliberately prevented from being exposed to a culture other than my own. In conclusion, as I reflect on my teenage years, I'm aggrieved that due to the presence of racism in its various forms, I and many of my generation, both black and white, were deliberately kept apart. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Irene. It's a reminder actually about how segregated this city used to be, but also it reminds us of what a vibrant club and diverse clubland that used to exist within the space of a square mile of this, and you know, less than a mile away from the city centre. So it's and you know what Irene's essay has done is kind of given us a reminder of Liverpool's rich, or Liverpool 8's rich kind of club heritage, but how that rich club heritage was based on, excluded, was deliberately exclusionary, and how many people who loved black music and black musical styles weren't knowledgeable about what was going on virtually on their doorstep, and we deliberately kept away from it. Thanks, Irene. Our next contributor is Olivia Curry. Olivia's essay is on the development of sound systems. What she does is she places the emergence of sound systems within their kind of historical and social and political context, and talks about the impact of sound systems on wider British music scene and British music styles, and also documents the emergence of British reggae. So over to you, Olivia.
Thanks, Emmy. I'm going to fast forward to the 80s now, and the part of my essay I'm reading is about two-tone, which was a type of music that fused reggae with punk. From 1979, a number of ska revival bands made a speedy intervention into mainstream pop. The genre became known as two-tone and was recognisable by its distinctly upbeat fusion of Jamaican ska music and rock. Bands like The Specials, The Selector, The Beat and Madness have been influenced by both the energy and cynicism of punk, as well as by their love for reggae. They usually had a multi-ethnic composition of young people who'd grown up in inner city estates that were full of Windrush settlers. This meant that many of the musicians had grown up hearing and appreciating reggae and Calypso music. All of the bands acknowledged their debt to reggae culture by covering many ska and rocksteady and reggae songs. The Jamaican elements could clearly be heard within the upbeat guitar and the drum and bass foundations that made the music so easy to dance to. Two-Tone's use of dub and toasting, combined with the political realism of its lyrics, demonstrated the huge political and cultural influence that reggae music had made on Britain's youth. Their lyrics spoke of their own shared experiences, with themes of police harassment, racism and unemployment. The song Stand Down Margaret by The Beat captured the disillusionment and anxiety that many young people felt about their future in Thatcherite Britain. Ghost Town by The Specials is another song that topped the charts during the rebellions of the summer of 1981, when both black and white young people clashed with police in Liverpool, London, Manchester, Birmingham and Leeds. The straightforward reggae-based rhythm of this song was slower than the band's typically quick ska beat, communicating the serious nature of the subject at hand, and the toasted utterances by Neville Staples helped to enhance its political message even further. Thank you.
Excellent, Olivia. I think it's a reminder actually that a style such as two-tone could never have happened in any other country in the world actually, other than Britain. And one of the features of Britain is notwithstanding the issues around racism that we're constantly familiar with, one of the features of British music that has helped to to make it unique and so rich and creative, is actually its lack of racial segregation and its ability for young people of all ethnicities and all races to share and contribute to particular music forms. One of the, just in terms of sharing, one of the kind of key features of British music as well has been the way in which different acts have come together to protest against racism. And Janet Gardner's essay is around looks at the impact of Rock Against Racism. And she uses the development and the history of Rock Against Racism to ponder what UK music might have looked like without the influence of the Windrush Generation. So she takes us on a whistle-stop tour of scenes and genres that have contributed to what we now understand and know as Black British music. So, Janet Gardner, over to you.
Thanks, Emmy. Own up, half your music is black. Where would you be without the blues and R&B? These were the words of Red Saunders, one of the founders of Rock Against Racism, taking Eric Clapton to task after the latter's notorious comments on stage at a concert in Birmingham in 1976. Clapton's racist tirade was shocking and came at a time when the right-wing National Front were making significant electoral gains. As a musician who was heavily influenced by the blues music and whose recent hit had been a cover version of Bob Marley's I Shot the Sheriff, his diatribe offended and angered fans. Inadvertently, Clapton's outburst became one of the catalysts for the emergence of a movement that encouraged and inspired greater integration and collaboration between musicians. At concerts organised by Rock Against Racism and attended by thousands of people, performances by bands such as Steel Pulse, The Clash and The Specials fought back against the racism and bigotry of the National Front under the slogan, Black and White, Unite and Fight. The success of the movement reflected a sea change within the British music scene, both socially and politically. From today's vantage point, it's inconceivable it took over 20 years from when the Windrush first docked for Black bands and white bands to share the same stage. Decades may have passed since Sanders' original letter to the music press, but in an era of a government's hostile environment, its central tenet echoes with added resonance. However, what if his question was expanded? In other words, to ponder on where would British music be without the Windrush Generation and their descendants? We can trace that journey of their influence through Calypso, ska, reggae and lovers rock, right up until the present day rap and grime. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. Once again, another excellent piece, and Janet's just given a little flavour of her essay, actually, that covers so much more and looks at how sound systems have influenced so many styles and so many genres of music. And that kind of leads us nicely into our seventh and final piece, which is from Lauren Buxton. Lauren is going to look at how sound system culture influenced the UK club scene, looks at the history of British sound systems and discovers how key features of culture kind of emerged, such as the DJ, and also kind of very closely links how sound systems developed and emerged and morphed into the UK's club scene and its impact that it has today. So, Lauren Buxton, over to you.
Thank you, Emmy. So I'm going to be reading the final part of my essay on how the children of the Windrush Generation paved the way for the UK dance scene. It's clear to say, without the immeasurable contribution of the Windrush Generation and their descendants, the musical landscape of what we know as British dance music would cease to exist. As I reiterated earlier within this essay, the significance of the Jamaican sound system culture is intrinsically linked to the development and musical evolution of UK dance music. As Phil Hartnell from the pioneering electronic band Orbital stated in a recent Skype interview, the Windrush Generation and their descendants completely enriched the UK dance music scene. And British culture is amalgamated to the Jamaican culture, particularly in England. They have influenced the whole of the UK. Additionally, the influence of the sound system culture can still be felt today, transcending not just the musical culture of Britain, but also within the causes such as the environmental movement. As Orbital's Phil Hartnell declared in his Skype interview to me, that he was in the process of building a sound system called Ravers in Disguise for the Extinction Rebellion movement. In addition to this, the Windrush Generation revitalised the infrastructure of post-war Britain, so too did the children of the Windrush Generation lay the foundation of the UK electronic music scene, without which we wouldn't have the technological and musical innovation that permeates through every genre of UK dance music. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren. And once again, Lauren's essay is, once again, she's just given us a little flavour of a broader essay that looks much deeper into club culture and looks at issues like, how DJs emerged and the DJs that emerged from some of the best known DJs that are in the business at the moment, and how they emerge from the sound system culture and everything else. So once again, excellent work by everybody. Yes, thanks very much everybody for the cooperation. I'm going to hand it back to Madeline Hennigan now.
Thanks, Emmy. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm just so incredibly proud of not only those who have read tonight, but everybody who has featured in the book. I just want to say congratulations. I want to say well done to those of you who have read. Karen, Brian, Claire, Irene, Janet, and Lauren. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do that, particularly on Zoom. So well done. But well done to everybody. There's 15 essays in this book, and the breadth that it covers is amazing. And I just want to say, Emmy talked about the research that went into it. These essays are thoroughly researched, unearthing things that many people wouldn't know, but also the standard of the writing is brilliant. And I want to say a special thanks to Emmy. Not only did Emmy deliver the sessions with me week in, week out, he also worked very closely with each individual writer to ensure that their essays was the best that they could be. And I want to say a special thanks to Lauren Buxton, who was our last reader, and she was the project worker. She kept us all organised on that project. And special thanks to Katrina Patterson for the beautiful book design. Katrina is our WoW's in-house designer, and I'm sure you will agree that this is beautiful. Of course, thanks to Michael Riley, it was an absolute honour and a pleasure to have him with us tonight. I need to also say thank you to our funders, the Mayor's Fund, support from Culture Liverpool, our regular funders, Arts Council England and City Council as well. if you've missed any of these events, or you joined us late, they will all remain up on our Facebook page. So do catch up on those, any you've missed. I want to take this opportunity to thank the whole, not just the WoW team who've worked tonight, but the entire WoW team for the effort that they have put in Black History Month. I would say this has been our largest, it certainly has. We've had more events than we've ever had. It's been incredible, and they have made it so. So thank you to the staff team. I also just want to say thank you, not just for Black History Month, but the work that they have done since lockdown began. They have just non-stop delivering new projects, making sure existing projects keep going, and engaging with communities at the most vital time. So well done to the WoW team. So Black History Month is over, but Black History is not just for October. And Writing on the Wall will continue to feature diverse writers, diverse experiences, and to engage communities throughout the year, in particularly in our writers block, which is a massive online space for new writers. So check us out on there. But in all of the work that we do, we will continue to promote diverse art. If you've enjoyed Black History Month, or indeed any of our activities, you might want to join, you might want to vote for us in the Liverpool City Region Arts Award. And I think a link will come up where you can do that on the comment section of Facebook. We'd be really delighted if you'd nominate us for that. Also, in the comment section, you'll find the feedback form, of course. And if you do like the work, you might also want to donate to us. You can do that also in the Facebook comment section. Now, it's not over yet. I've just done the thanks, but it's not over yet. Now it's time to get out of your slippers and put your dancing shoes on. Or if you want to dance in your slippers, that's perfectly fine. I'm now going to introduce you to DJ Lord Borthbury, who plays at events, festivals all over Liverpool. He is currently writing a book on the history of reggae music, which he has researched in depth on here and in Jamaica. So please stick with us. DJ Lord Borthbury will continue to play. He's going to play some of the tracks and some of the artists that have been that are featured in Music of the People from SS Orbita to Orbital. So stick with us. He's going to play until Facebook kicks him out, basically. Finally, just thank you all for coming, and we'll see you again in the not too distant future. Stay safe and stay well. Thank you. Good night.